Hello, everybody, and thanks for having me on the channel again today. I'm Robert Zone. I'm the owner and founder and president of Value Electronics that we started in 1998. And 20 years ago, in 2004, I made public our first TV shootout evaluation event that I created several years before that. But this is our 20th year that we're presenting it live to the public. And it'll be this weekend, which is going to start on Saturday, August 3rd at 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, with a group of 50 of the top video experts that are flying in from all over the world to participate in the event, along with the top TVs that'll be participating. And day two of the event, we're going to be doing the 83 to 86 inch class televisions, the top tier. Behind me is the 83-inch LG G4, the Gallery Series MLA, micro lens array 83-inch. And you can't see the other ones, but the 85 to 86-inch class BRAVIA 9 is butt up against it, as is Samsung's QN95D, their new flagship QD Mini LED, and also LG's new QNED90T 86-inch. And so look forward to seeing everybody Saturday when we'll be broadcasting a lot of this live. They'll be recording everything and making several specialty videos in the next few days after that. Thank you again, all. On to the next.
I've seen things
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Brian. This is Tech Therapy. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm with my partner in crime, Stop the FOMO. FOMO, we are here to talk about the 20th annual Value Electronics TV, King of TV Shootout.
Yep.
What's up, my
I
friend?
I don't think I was even born 20 years ago. Like, aren't we a bunch of Gen Zers here?
Yeah, that was before my time. Well,
Way
bro,
before my time.
it's that time of year again, and as you and I have talked about for the last, I think, 4 or 5 years, our Super Bowl now. It's the end of the year. Our CES is our kickoff, and I guess for many, this is the end of the TV year. We know it's not the end of the TV year for us, but I'm going to see you in a few days. This is kind of our kickoff video, and then we're going to have a live stream on your channel Friday night, and then we're going to have some time at the actual event Saturday. How's it going?
And Sunday,
And
right?
Sunday. Exactly. So tell me what's going on. You're on your way to me. I'm going to grab you Friday. We're going to set up at the store. You're going to come back
Yes.
here and live stream at my studio. But tell me what your thoughts are about going into this 20th shootout. I mean, this is a world-renowned shootout that Mr. Robert Zone is having.
It's going to be exciting, mostly because this is the first time I've done it at the store.
Yep.
Normally, we've done it in New York City, Manhattan, and that's all I know, right? And
Yeah.
last year we had the flood, but this year, we're going to go cozy and do it at the store where all the TVs are. Basically, it's just a logistic hassle moving literally a bunch of 85-inch TVs,
Yeah.
large TVs, and so many 65-inch TVs. And we have two reference monitors this year. So
Yep.
I think having it at the store makes it a lot easier logistically.
Yep.
Now, the challenge for me is I've never covered it at the store, so a lot of exciting things.
Yeah.
But one thing I do want to emphasize, this is the first time we've done this, even though we've mentioned it before, is we've separated the TV types, the
Yep.
best OLED TV, and then the best LCD mini LED TV, and then the winner of each will go head to head. And a lot of you are already predicting, oh, I know who's going to win, but use case, right? So it'll be fun for us to create a use case where maybe the mini LED might win. So,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on that? OLED versus mini LED?
What I love about separating a FOMO is we talked about even what we did at M-Wave is that with mini LEDs, especially those at 65 inches, you're off angle no matter how you put them. So anytime a judge moves over to the next one, if they even glance over, they're already at a disadvantage to an OLED. And no matter how good that mini LED is, when the OLEDs are on, even if you did a blind, it wouldn't work. You're like, oh, there they are. So I think having the ability to have them judge separately so they're kind of on an even playing field. And then when the two winners are together, you know, it won't be so off angle and they'll be able to really trade shots that way. So I love that they're separated for that reason. And it's something that everyone has been asking for, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know what we forgot to mention? What are the TVs that'll be there? We're talking about the TVs. Everyone knows what they are. I mean, is it the B4 versus the
Yeah,
A90L, right?
well, I think that in doing it that way, from what people are going to think there's actually less competitors this year, which there really
Mhm.
isn't. It's just having them broken in half. So why don't you name our competitors for us?
Okay. So flagship. So first of all, for those of you wondering, once we give you the list, you know, why isn't my TV there or whatever? To qualify, you have to be the best model within that brand's lineup, right? Because essentially this is a shootout for the best of the best. So we go to each manufacturer saying, hey, give us your best technology TV this year. And so in the case of OLED, the best OLED from each manufacturer would be from Sony, the A95L. It comes back stronger than ever. It's got a recent firmware update, which I'll share with you in a second,
Yep.
but it fixes a few things. It's a little bit brighter here and there. And then now, will that make a difference at the shootout? Possibly, because speaking of brighter, both Samsung's and LG's flagship OLED TVs are even brighter this year than last year. For Samsung, that would be the S95D with their anti-reflective and glare-free coating. Will that
Yep.
affect the shootout? You
Yep.
know, maybe not in a dark room. And then we have the G4 with second generation MLA, literally the brightest TV you can get, arguably brighter than some mini LED TVs. So those are the OLED flagships. And in the mini LEDs, so you ask each manufacturer, hey, what's your best LCD mini LED TV? Sony this year is the Bravia 9. I mean, this is the TV we all want to see, right?
Yep.
So you have the Bravia 9. Samsung, it will probably be the QN95D.
It is.
Again,
Yep.
a boutique, right? Boutique only model this year. Get it from custom installers like Value Electronics. Won't be available at Best Buy, but I think they'll have it there. And then there might be one more. We don't know which one it is. It could be the QNED by LG. You know, we're going to see if we can throw in the third one. But the reality is, among mini LED TVs, those two are considered the best in terms of just everything compared. So the winner of each category will then go next to each other, side by side. And in addition to that, a lot of you are arguing, wait a minute, these are 65-inch size. Doesn't the Bravia 9 have the 85-inch, which many have said is better because it has more dimming zones per inch, right? It's just, quote unquote, a better spec version of the Bravia 9. Well, guess what? We're going to have the 85-inch Bravia 9 versus the 83-inch LG G4 with MLA. And unfortunately, since QD OLED doesn't have the 83-inch size, it'll be the best 85 versus the best 83. That's the Bravia 9 versus the G4 at that size. So we're going to have some comparisons there as well.
Well, and also the QN85D is up there already at 85. So we have that at 85, and I think the LG QNED will be there, you know, because it is their flagship. What's interesting, FOMO, is, you know, we talk about what's the flagship of each manufacturer. And
Right.
since OLEDs have now been elevated, where, oh no, actually the QN900D is the flagship. Well,
Yeah.
that's the 8K flagship. And then
Right.
everyone gets really caught off that, well, hey, the A95L is the flagship. Well, nope, the Bravia 9 is the flagship. In reality, FOMO, each manufacturer now has a OLED flagship and an LED flagship. Now, you mentioned the S95D, and I think it's interesting with the S95D versus the S90D, which was just here. And now I have the QN90D behind me and the QN95D, is that the processing is quite different between those models,
hmm
which is
hmm
really important, even with a very calibrated display, isn't it, FOMO? It's really,
Yeah.
there is the cream of the crop. I think when you do have, if you had lesser TVs and you calibrate them, a lot of those weaknesses may show up. What do you think about that? The processing being more important.
I just love that you talk about processing. That's why Sony won last year. So if you guys follow the shootout year to year, last year, I felt really strongly that the S95D or C, that's just
See, it
S95C,
was excellent.
Samsung's.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought it would have beaten, or in my opinion, I thought it was more accurate than the A95L because A95L's processing was beautiful, but was it accurate?
XR
It
clear.
made,
Yep.
right, XR Clear made those scenes a little bit better than it was, whereas the S95D, you know what? If it looks
Is
like crap, it's crap.
the
and,
content is, yeah. So it's
and Sony's like, you know, brushing it up. And guess what? The
Yeah.
judges loved it, and the
Yeah.
G3 tried to make it accurate. So the
Yeah.
G3 and S95D, in those scenes where the highlights weren't sparkling and didn't pop, and it shouldn't, because on the reference monitor I didn't think it popped either, but on the Sony it looked a little bit better, and I was like, oh, there's no way Sony's going to win, right?
Yeah.
These judges will knock it, and guess what? They
Yeah.
didn't. And so
Yeah.
this year, the complaint is, oh, the G4 is pulling a Sony. You can't disable this
Yeah.
sharpening, this and
Alpha
that. Hey,
11. Yeah.
G4, why is it my favorite TV this year and yours? Because we felt that processing pushed the G4 beyond
Yeah.
everything else this year. And we're not talking MLA, WOLED versus QD-OLED,
It's the
right?
Alpha
Let's put that
11.
aside.
Yeah.
That Alpha 11 for motion, processing, gaming, low bitrate content, just it's phenomenal. I really enjoy the Alpha 11. I wish it was shared with the C4 and the
C-series. Yeah.
B4. Just
Yep.
give all the love like Sony does with the XR Clear. They had to give it to everyone. They
Yeah.
don't care how cheap
Yeah.
you are, right? X90L, give you an XR Clear. But it's reserved, the G4, it's reserved for the G4 only. And that's just too bad, But that is a phenomenal processor. And so the question is, Brian, with that processor, does the G4 have a chance? And now
So,
everyone's doing a little magic with crappy content. So
of course. Well, I think a great point, FOMO, is what the weakness of LG's lineup is leaving the Alpha 11 for the M4 and the G4
mhm.
in terms of not passing it. Samsung takes that even a step further because their best processor is on the QN900D, which is phenomenal. Um,
And I'm Scott. You mentioned that. Arguably, they may have that. I
on
mean,
the
I'm trying to lobby
QN95. I know.
instead of the QN95. We
Yeah.
both like the QN100D, but it's possible the 95D is a little bit brighter. So
Well, because of the
brightness wins, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
in
So
some
you're
content, the 95D might look better. So I was like, oh, what do
yeah,
you
because
do?
we've always talked year after year how like Sony with the Z9K push through that pixel density and their TVs are brighter. Samsung sometimes the 8K TV is not quite as bright as the flagship. And I
Mhm.
know me and a handful of people have only seen the QN95 series in the last few years. 2 years ago, it was just a different body, same TV.
Yeah,
Last year, it had the 8K processor. It didn't process 8K, but it had that same processor, and it was head and shoulders better than the QN90C.
yeah.
This year, I haven't really spent a lot of time with the QN95D. I don't know if it has the processor from the 900D. They're not really disclosing that,
Oh, yeah.
but it's a shame because I can definitely tell you that the S95D is a good deal better than the S90D in terms of its
Yeah,
processing.
I saw that its tone mapping is it's more
More
nuanced,
refined.
right?
Yep.
It
Yep.
could do better, the brighter content. You could see
Yep.
the details without losing the brightness, and then better
Yep.
contrast, all the good stuff.
Absolutely.
So clear that S95D uses a better processor. The hope is that its processor is almost as good as the 900D or
Yeah.
close enough that it doesn't make a difference, and you have a competitive. Well, it'll be hard. I mean, the G4 with its Alpha 11, it's I don't know. I think when we get there on Thursday, we're going to be able to see all these TVs fully calibrated. We get to see some of the content
Yeah.
ahead of time just to get a feel for it. And like you all, we won't be judges, but we'll be observing, taking notes, and sharing with you what
Of course.
we see in our prediction because we won't know what the judges are thinking. We're not going to do any spoilers. We're not going to ask the judges what they're voting. But we're going to do our predictions based on our own impressions of what we think is accurate. But I also want to throw this out at you, Brian. The reference monitor this year has been swapped out for the latest and greatest
Yep.
Sony 3110 reference monitor, one that you guys see on my channel all the time. It's been brought to the shootout. So real HDR content that goes super bright. What
Yeah.
TV gets there the closest? And then the question then, does mini LED have a shot now? Because it's supposed to be quote unquote this bright.
And,
That could be the
yeah.
thing.
And that's what I think is better about them being separated. I think some people had said, hey, if you're separating the LEDs, is that to give the Bravia 9 a better shot? And absolutely not. It was never the Bravia 9 was never a consideration going into this shootout to give it a chance. But the fact that the LEDs, especially the QN95D, will have a chance to flex the brightness, then
Mhm.
putting them against each other versus if we're looking at them all together, FOMO, I think the Bravia 9 loses immediately to even the
Mhm.
A95L. Having them separately, now we can actually see it gives each one a chance to really go after best of the best. And I imagine the OLEDs would probably still win. But I think it's also the A95L. Is it an advantage that it's more refined? It's been updated so much. Like you said, it's maybe a bit brighter. It's probably the best overall right now in terms of it's the old man on the block.
Yeah.
It's still
So
not even a
I,
year old.
I want to clarify what I mean by brighter. Brighter in certain presets. Now, I don't know if it got brighter with accurate content. Was it able to push
Yeah.
custom mode or professional mode brighter? But for sure, crazy, right? I did my Netflix calibrated review
Mhm.
and I included the A95L. And wouldn't you know it, literally 2 days after I post it, it gets an update. Dolby
Hey,
Vision Dark is brighter. I'm like, oh,
I gotta do it
and
again. Yeah.
I mean, it's better.
Yeah.
It's hard to say if it's accurate, but definitely it was brighter than when I had it. And some people say it's too bright. Also, Netflix calibrated mode is definitely brighter, right? And so now they went from people complaining maybe Netflix calibrated mode would be too dark. Trust me, it's bright. Arguably, it's even brighter than the Bravia 9. It's like, what
Yeah.
happened here, right? And so, you know what? It's calibrated mode. Is it accurate? Who's right, right? The Bravia 9 or the A95L? Both look pleasant, but one is slightly brighter than the other. And it's not the Bravia 9 that's slightly brighter. It's actually the A95L. But my A95L, or rather, I want to mention that though, these are presets that are technically not calibrated.
Yeah.
At the shootout,
Yeah.
all the TVs will be calibrated. So you and I, we enjoy comparing TVs out of the box,
Yep.
but at the shootout, every TV that's participating will be calibrated to the inch of its life
Yeah.
to make sure that they're at their best because they want to make sure that if the TV is fully calibrated, how close can it get to a calibrated reference monitor?
That's
So
the
the
yeah.
results of this, right, may not be applicable to you if you don't plan to get it calibrated. So
Yeah.
we will have an out of the box comparison without calibration as well. That's something
Yeah.
new that we haven't had before.
So if we stay in the calibrated portion, FOMO, for those that aren't in the know, the calibration, I believe each one will have a separate preset that is named calibrated, or it's not exactly filmmaker mode or custom preset. Actually, it looks on the TV, it'll say calibrated one or calibrated two.
That would be on the Sony. So the
On the
so
Sony.
so
Okay. Yep.
it depends. So let's say on the LG, right? The
Hmm.
LG G4, its filmmaker mode will be their calibrated mode. So they're going
Okay.
to calibrate the filmmaker mode, but you can do the same for its cinema mode or whatever. But really, they're going to make the filmmaker mode as close to calibrated as possible,
Yep.
and then they're going to have a different TV out of the box, whatever you would choose the best presets
Yeah.
that come closest to accurate without changing any of the settings. Because most owners don't change their settings. It's just,
Mm.
oh, I'm watching sports. Let's put it in sports mode. I'm watching
Yep.
movie. Let's put it in
Yep.
movie mode, something like that, right? But as far as the TV themselves, on the Samsung and on the LG, there's an actual filmmaker mode. So that
Mhm.
mode will be calibrated.
Yep.
Now, I'll double check again. We'll check again because sometimes the calibrators might find a mode that's better for calibration than other times. So it really depends. Like, ironically, on the TCL QM8, the game mode is the most accurate mode for calibration. It holds
Gotcha.
on to the calibrations better than any other mode. It has just
Yeah.
the EOTF is a bit better. I mean, it's game mode of all things, right? So who expected that?
Well,
But
processing's
this,
off anyway in game
yeah,
mode pretty much.
who
So maybe
cares,
it
right?
works.
No, and it looks good apparently. The contrast is amazing. So a lot of you with the TCL QM851G, check your game mode, right? That could be the better mode for you. But on the TVs at the shootout, so filmmaker mode, so on the Sony A95L and the Bravia 9, it'll be the professional mode. And yeah, and that's it. And then that's the calibrated portion.
Yep.
The out of the box portion, we have yet to decide which one most fairly represents the TV out of the box because we want to limit how much tweaking we do to the TV because that takes it
Yeah.
out of the realm of reality because 90%, more than 90% of TV buyers, they don't touch any settings. Forget the preset. Sometimes they just leave it on whatever store mode that comes out, right? So assuming they will make one selection and they choose movie mode or whatever it
Yep.
is, that might be
There's
the one we compare. So, I'll talk to the team and
yeah.
see how they decide. So that's still something that, we'll have
Yeah.
to decide.
What's interesting is Samsung ships an eco mode. which is like it's like the brightest mode. And
Isn't
it
that
still
ironic?
is.
That's the brightest mode.
So maybe that's them trying to game it. Like, hey, let's just do out of the box. We're in eco mode anyway. It's really vivid. I mean, let's give a quick shout
I
out. We'll
like
give
it.
a quick shout out to Robert Zone of Value Electronics. He'll be introing in here. I'm going to have him do a little intro. Wendy Zone, Leanne, all the Value Electronics team. The whole crew that's helping behind the scenes, and then let's list the calibrators too. Let's give them a little love as well.
Oh my
FOMO.
God.
We
So
have
much work.
right. We got Dwayne Davis, legendary Dwayne Davis. He's the man. We got John Reformato, who's also the man. Jason Dustle, who you guys know, is there, as well as our very own Cecil. Classy Tech is going to be
Yep.
doing. These guys have really worked behind the scenes, and they're not judges. We have, and I'm not going to list the judges. We'll do that when we do our event. But for the most,
John I think John's judging this year. He's taking a step back from calibrating.
okay, so he just helped organize. I got you. Okay,
Yeah. But he's like, you know what?
yeah,
Let the young kids do their thing. I'm just
yeah,
going to enjoy myself and be a judge. Eat the
yeah.
snacks. Hmm.
But you have some of the best in the business, especially Dwayne, Jason been doing it forever. As far as I'm concerned, Cecil's like a prodigy. He's been doing it. He really knows his stuff. And having them, what's so great about that too is they check each other's work to make sure
Hmm.
everything's consistent, not to double check to say, hey, is he doing a good job? Just they check each other's results,
Well,
equipment.
can I stop you right there?
Sure.
So this is why we check each other's work. And sometimes they call us in as well. Sometimes, okay, all of us are more sensitive to certain colors than others. So my first calibrator I ever used from Best Buy to calibrate my A9G, he's hypersensitive to magenta. So he right away saw, oh, this is pink tint I can't stand. I could barely see it. But then, I'm very sensitive to shades of blue. So sometimes class will ask me, hey, what do you think of this blue? Because we all have our thing that we're sensitive to, and at the end, after the sensors and the measurements and all these things are in, you have to perceptually match it, and that's where that little sensitivity makes a big difference. And so whether it's Wayne or Clancy or me or you, we might see something that's not on the other TV, and like, oh yeah, okay, you're right? But you don't see what you don't notice. So that's oftentimes, hey, John, what do you think, right? Oh yeah, I see a little bit of, you're right, there's a little bit of pink there. And then like, okay, just double checking, is it
Yeah.
my imagination or is it really
Yeah.
there?
Yeah. Just make sure you're not wearing that shirt when you walk in the room.
The rose tinted glasses. Should I wear my
Like,
sunglasses then?
well, I think people don't understand that when these things are actually calibrated, everybody's wearing black. The room is black. It has
Or
to be,
or 15% gray.
or great.
Make
Yeah.
sure
Yep.
I have a 15% gray shirt. I went to a custom tailor. I said, I need a 15% gray shirt. He's like, I have no idea what you're talking
It's like
about.
is there banding on it?
Let me break out my little shadow. So going through, okay, it matches this. This is the 15% gray shirt I need.
It's got dirty screen effects. I go, don't look sideways. There's some DSC on it. So quickly too, also with the shootout. Again, thank you to everybody that's involved in it. But there's a misconception that Sony has won every year. That's simply a misconception. We say this every year.
Mhm.
LG won, I believe, 5 years in a row. I believe the last year they won, it might have been the C8. The
Before
A9G,
before the introduction of the A9G, that's when they won
yeah, so
last.
it would have been the C8, then the A9G won. Obviously the A95K barely won. The A95, well, no, that's not true. The A90J won. So it was
Yes.
A9G, A90J, A95K, A95L. So that's 4 years in a row. We'll
Can
see if it goes for
I
five.
insert a caveat why LG won those years?
It was the only
It
OLED.
was because Sony, no, they're both OLEDs. Like, why did the Sony OLED beat the LG OLED?
Mhm.
One reason only, dirty screen effect. Sony Master Series OLEDs bend
Oh,
their
they've been
panels.
higher. Yep.
So they're more expensive than the G1, G2, whatever,
Yep.
which means they got rid of the bad panels. And so the panels they did sell more likely were cleaner. LG did not do that with their G series, the
True.
years they lost. And so bad luck, they pulled at least 2 or 3 different LGs. They all had some
Yeah.
variation of that vertical pink magenta banding. It killed them. Three
Yeah. Well,
years straight. they want everything. But then when it came to the shadow, I was like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, we're gonna mark you down.
Yeah. So
And they would have won
yeah.
those 3 years. And so
Well, I think
Sony's like, yes.
Well, I think to your point, the G1 that first year wasn't much different. The G2, I know that they were really trying with that Evo panel that was showing up. But for the years that they were the only OLEDs, other than the
Hmm.
A1E, which had no shot the first year that it came out, LG was by itself. So LG won 5 years in a row. Sony has 4 years in a row. Samsung has won it. I think Samsung won it 1 year when their plasma was in it. And Sharp is the only winner of the LED, which was the Sharp Elite way
Hmm.
back. And it was like a Kiro Elite. They used the name Sharp Elite. That's the last time they won. So it looks like Sony has won this number of years, but they are Master Series, the processing. I do not. Well, are we doing like little predictions or what do we want? We want to do a little prediction here? We're not
Let's
judges. We
do.
can
Oh,
do it.
wait. Not prediction because I want to see the TVs next to the reference monitor, so that way
That's a
our
good point.
prediction. So we'll
That's a
have
good
a
point.
prediction of the TVs there
Yeah.
on Saturday, right? So we'll have our pre-show. We'll have a pre-show right before the results, and then we'll do the
Yeah. Yep.
predictions. But how about we do what our favorite TV among what we've seen, our winner?
Yeah.
Meaning,
So yeah,
you've seen a
that's
bunch of TVs, you reviewed it,
definitely.
right? And I've seen a
So
bunch of TVs. What, in your own personal shootout, in your brain, who's in the lead? Who's favored to win based on what you've seen so far?
So I'll tell you this. I know we've done videos on our favorite, most recommended TVs. What I think is threw a monkey wrench in it for me, FOMO, was M-Wave
Yes.
because we had now our TVs were, I think the ones we had were what they call roadshow TVs or TVs that they've been around the block from the manufacturers.
They've been
Uh,
ridden hard.
been around the world and yeah. Like, so shout out to George from LG and the Andrews from Sony, and Samsung had the S95D there, which was brand new. And that thing was
Yes.
a light cannon. It
Yep.
was the brightest TV over even the QM8 and the Bravia 9. So it would be interesting to see. I know you and I were very torn. I think you had that as the S95D was the winner of M-Wave,
Yeah. It was my favorite TV at
your
M-Wave.
favorite TV M-Wave.
And really, my TV, my personal TV, I would bring home if it wasn't for the G4's amazing processor. Because with what
Yeah,
I watch,
yeah.
sports and a little bit of gaming, this and that, I really benefit from the G4.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
so I
yeah,
mean the S95D, the QD OLED, um, and it's another thing, another wild card. To me, FOMO, the S95D is the Bronco of the group. It's the wild Bronco
wait,
because
you have a Bronco, so
it's
are you
not the
saying?
Ford Bronco.
Uh,
But it's just the unwieldy. It's the only Gen 3 panel in the lineup.
mhm.
The A95L is a Gen 2 panel, regardless of the rumors that are out there, especially at 65 inches. But the thing is, its processing should be similar to the S90D. It's not. It's got
It's a
something
little bit
extra.
better.
It's got
Yeah.
something happening, and that screen, FOMO, has been suspect in a bright room. Some feel it's suspect in a dark room. I'm really looking
Uh-huh.
forward to seeing what the calibrators. I know what we think of it.
Yeah.
I think either one of us don't even care at
Or
this
the
point.
judges. Will the
Or the
judges even notice?
judges,
I want to
yes.
ask the judge, hey, did you know this TV has a glare-free coating? I like either they'll say, oh yeah, I noticed it, or what are you talking about? It's a great looking
Yeah.
TV, right? So
So shout out real quick to KG because when KG and I were at Samsung, I'll never forget. He was like all about it, and then I was like, "Well, watch this one Starfield thing." And then him and I were both staring at it. He goes, "Oh my god, it does have almost like a blooming. It's just really the screen."
right.
And then he changed his mind a little bit. Then I changed my mind. But I think it's interesting. These guys have that freaking jewel glass, like
Yes,
the
yeah.
jewelry thing. So
With
are they going to be on?
super bright plasma flashlight
So
on
are they
top.
going to be on the freaking Pixels FOMO and be like, is this thing blooming? So, and the fact that a lot of these guys, the judges, I mean, are they purists? Is the matte
Hmm.
screen going to throw them off? It's so obvious.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm really interested to hear
Well,
what
it's
they
obvious
think.
to us because we know what to look for. But if
Yeah,
you've never really seen a glossy and a matte, it's like not a big deal to
yeah.
you. You may not notice.
Well, I wonder. Oh, I wonder because these judges are industry enthusiasts.
Yeah,
If they're like,
yeah.
hey, that thing looks like my monitor on my on what I make content on, right?
I
That
love
looks like
it.
the one I have at home. So I think that's a wild card for me. The G4 to me, it's just a perfect mixture of peak brightness, alpha 11,
Mhm.
It's still the TV that blows me away. The Bravia 9 is a totally different animal. I would love to see G4 Bravia 9 um, match up, especially calibrated. I'd love to
Mhm.
see that. I know we're going to
Mhm.
see the next day G4 versus Bravia 9, 85 versus A3. I'm actually going to film
That's
that,
exciting. Yeah,
and
that's
I'm going to film
exciting.
that tomorrow before the shootout even starts. When
Yeah.
I shoot Robert for this intro. But to me, I think FOMO, what's amazing is we thought this would be just an OLED only year. The mini LEDs not apply, but the Bravia
Right.
9 has changed that. And I think the QN95D is going to change that as well, which no
You
one's
know,
seen.
based on what you're saying, I'm just thinking about what I would choose as my favorite TV for a cinema purist watching, right? So,
Yeah.
like I said, the G4 fits me because I watch so many different things. Most of that is not on in the shootout, right?
Yeah.
Sports or a little bit of gaming or just whatever it is that I watch. However, if it was for just HDR, cinema, accuracy, I think it might be the S95D because I know that in a lot of content, you're going to see, even at 800 nits, if there's color in there,
Yep.
it's going to be richer on the S95D.
Yep.
And it's noticeable, especially when you have it next to a reference line. It goes, oh, wait, you're going to see a little bit, the sky will be a little bit bluer if it's there.
Yep.
The facial, the red, maybe red lanterns, whatever it is. I think the S95D will show it a little bit better if it's pushing the luminance bright enough. Now, the luminance, the brightness is a little bit lower, they'll all look the same. But then as it gets brighter and brighter, I think the
We're gonna-
S95D is really going to spread its wings and fly away,
Well,
even away
and
from the A95L.
and to that point, that would be interesting. FOMO is if the A95L, we know it struggles as it gets brighter like that. If the content pushes too
Ironic,
bright,
isn't it? Yeah.
ironically, so the fact that the G4 can go higher, to your point, while it may get well, the times I've seen the G4 versus the S95D, though the G4 in theory would be brighter, it rarely looks brighter in some
Mm.
scenes, right? In some areas.
Yeah. I think you have to put it in the right preset. So when we put it in sports mode, like
Yeah.
standard or vivid, yeah, the G4 just rocks the brightness
Yeah.
right there with the S9, brighter than the S95D, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
put it in standard to vivid mode for sports watching, and the S95D cannot keep up. Even in dynamic mode, it cannot keep up. And the Bravia, even in vivid mode, could not keep up. The
Yeah.
G4 is that light, and that's why I love it. It's like, you know what? I need it to be in vivid mode to watch this sporting event because it's a bright room. I want to see it from across the room. There is no other TV on sale today, and that includes the TCL QM8 that will hit that level of brightness and contrast at all
And
angles,
hold it
right?
together. Yeah. And
And
hold it
hold it
together.
together. I mean, but that's not going to be in the shootout. So that's
Yeah.
why I would predict for shootout purposes, I think the S95D is my favorite to win.
Oh
But
my God.
we'll see tomorrow. We'll see tomorrow,
Yeah.
or Thursday when we get there. Let's see how
Yeah.
they calibrate up, right? So I'm
Yeah,
excited.
yeah, and that is, what's funny that you say that, foam, was I remember when the Sharp was in last year's, and you can see where the calibration, like those TVs definitely needed whatever extra processing
Hmm.
they pull from wherever they pull it from, whether it's the local dimming needs to be here. When they calibrate, there's different things they do disable. Some of those TVs definitely need that stuff on because it did show
Hmm.
itself to be either firmware updates screwed it up, but it definitely didn't look good compared to the others. So you have to be a certain caliber for a reason. You have to
Yeah.
almost rely on your processing and your core system versus all the extra stuff, which I think is so interesting, FOMO, is you really can't bring in all those weapons. You have to come in pretty strong on your own.
Yeah, so I want to take a step back because right when you said that, it hit me. But the common consumer, because there's got to be a separation between
Of
what
course.
do you take away from as an enthusiast? Oh yeah, this TV won after everything's calibrated in their most accurate mode, whatever, right? But then the common man with $5,000, $4,000 to burn for a nice TV, is this applicable to him? I mean, should he get the winner or should he
Yeah.
get something else? And I think there's the confusion because a lot of you enthusiasts, right? Cost is no object. Whatever 77-inch TV wins, because that's what I can afford, give me the best one.
Yeah.
It may not be the TV you want because what you said, Brian, what about the processor? What about how does it look in sports?
Yeah.
If that's what you want, you might want to get the loser because it does so well in
Well, I mean,
sports.
that's that's a really good point. Well, we always said this too, that actually the loser, which is hard to say when they're all this amazing,
Loser.
who
Yeah.
comes in last actually might be better for you. Not because it's more affordable, but like something like the S95C last year, we thought it might come in first. It actually came in third. The G2 snuck in, or the G3 snuck in. But that's when we get back into use case, which makes it easier. I think the winner FOMO, it really is the bragging rights of like
Yes.
I have the Master Series, but I do have the winner. And
Hmm.
it is a big deal. It's a big deal in this industry, which I think is pretty amazing for Robert, Wendy, and Leanne, is that here's this small store. He's been in the business forever, and this is known around the world, which is pretty amazing. But having these best TVs and the manufacturers know it's a big deal. Like they
Hmm.
know they're. I love how their TVs are like they. My point is, I think without actually, I'll say this, FOMO. I think these manufacturers know they have to rely on their processing for this kind of win, right? So they really do. The
Yes.
engineer teams really do think about the shootout when they get prepared,
Hmm.
because when they get to the end, there's no hiding behind, the extra dynamic contrast or whatever, sexy looks they have in their presets. Can't turn those on for this. So the
Yep.
dynamic tone mapping mode of this one can't help you here, and the engineers are aware of that, which I love, because a lot of times they're at the shootout, so we get to talk to them, which is really cool too. How many times we sat back, FOMO, with the engineers, and they're like nervous parents. They're like, "How's it look?" And they look at the TV so differently, which I think is amazing.
Yeah. But well, so talking about the nervous parents, after every shootout, you got the winners, you got those that didn't
Yeah,
win, and the ones that didn't win always say, "Oh, but we did this and this, and you didn't test that, right?" And that's part of the issue is
yeah,
as long as you make the criteria transparent, if you want to win, you already know what the criteria is.
yeah.
But does that mean you're going to sell more TVs? So, as an example of that, last year's S95C, that was my 77-inch. Loved the TV, but I had to make room for it. So I gave it to my best friend, who was my best man at the wedding. So they needed a new TV. Hey, you know what? This is a great TV. It's a Samsung. They've never owned a Samsung before. They've had Sony's mostly, right? They love Sony's. And so, okay, we'll take a Samsung. Let's try the OLED, right? So we hang it over the fireplace. And the first thing I thought was, oh man, should have brought the
It's gonna melt.
S95D. This glare, the glare is killing me. But that aside, right? So it's up there, and then about a month later, they call me and go, "This is the best TV we've ever owned. It's amazing." I said, "Oh, you like the OLED?" They're like, "Oh, we don't know what that means, but this UI is so fast." I go, "What do you mean?" Like all the other TVs we have, Google TV, Roku, whatever. It takes forever to go from Netflix to Prime to live TV. He goes, "This Tizen is so fast. We can tell
Yeah,
it's a flagship TV." I'm like, "Wait, you didn't notice the contrast?" And the whole time, I don't know what you're talking about.
it's like
What
what?
about the HDR? What? All they could talk about
Yeah,
and rave about was how fast Tizen was.
yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, I like Tizen personally, but I didn't realize, and this is the first time they used it, and they're like, "This is it. We're only going to get
Yeah.
Samsungs moving forward." Oh, and I keep on saying, because of the QD OLED. And he goes, "Why do you keep on saying that? We have no idea
Who
what
is
this
this? Dairy Queen?
but we love the Tizen." And go, look how,
Yeah,
so the whole time he's like demonstrating the remote.
yeah.
Look how fast it goes from Netflix to Amazon. And I didn't realize how painful it was for him
Yeah,
on his older, because, well, I gave him the Hisense, like an older Hisense for the game room.
yeah, yeah.
And, and he's used to it. It takes a while to go from this to that. And with this TV, he's like, I can tell this is the best. And it's all the speed. That's all he cares about.
Yeah, and that
Because it all
you
looks the
said,
same to him. That's
yeah, but
crazy, right?
and that's the point that you said, like, we have to keep in mind for everybody watching, this is enthusiasts. Now you're into the enthusiast, you're into some of the best calibrators out there are really looking at these, they're making them. So now would you say you love a calibrated image? Not everyone's gonna love a calibrated
Hmm.
image, but
Hmm.
you're gonna see these TVs at their best, most accurate going against reference. And that's what we keep hearing about with people
Yeah,
in the comments. Is it calibrated is not what's important to you. What should be important to you is it reference to the reference monitor?
right.
I think that's going to be the big difference, especially the new reference monitor that we're going to have there, which you have in your studio.
Yeah.
I'm excited for it, FOMO. I'm excited to have you here in this studio. You'll be here Friday night. Any parting words for the shootout before we get out of here? We're 37 minutes in. We always say 20 minutes.
Oh, yeah. So we're going to have some fun interviews. We're going to set up the interviews this year to really reflect how we feel. I want to get more judges to share after the scoring, to share why they voted what they did. Not so
Yeah.
much to nitpick or anything like that, but rather I want to hear from them. I mean,
Yep.
what is it you do?
How'd they
What
come
were
to
you
that?
looking
Yeah.
for? And why was this your TV? Like, what was your favorite TV? I just really want to hear a
Yep.
more holistic, like, oh, well, I like this TV for its contrast or whatever. I go, just generally, which TV would you bring home? And I'd be curious to see what they choose because at the end of the day, it might be like, oh, the Tizen is so fast. I'm done. Just take that
Yeah,
home.
exactly. Like, can I get that? But you know what's funny? You bring up a good point, FOMO, because a lot of people would say, how come you guys aren't judges? Why, are we? Look, we have the eye for it. Here's the thing, though. We know these TVs in and out from before they come out. We spend so
Mhm.
much time with them. We spend more time with all of these brands. The G4 we've known. I mean, every model. The fact is, a lot of these professionals are filmmakers. They don't really even have the TV, so it's almost it's not only is it people that know photography and they're in cinema and everything else, they don't have to know the TV business. They just know
Right.
what they like. It's better to have non-TV people that know these brands intimately to say, "Oh, I love the G4. I've been watching that." So if I was a freaking judge, they're like, "This guy said the G4 at CES, and he's a big gamer." And so when I hear like Kenny, love Kenny, we'll have him on. When one of the best moments of last year's shootout, he's like, "I just got an OLED." Like, really? What'd you get? He goes, "Got one of those QD OLEDs, the S90." I'm like, "Oh, you got the S one here?" He goes, "No, I got the B." So you got like the one from 3 years ago. But it shows
Right.
you that they're in the industry, like someone
Hmm.
like Jennifer Gala, who's I couldn't get her to be a judge this year. Hopefully next year. She's a filmmaker, and yes, she's into TVs, but she would be looking at it as a filmmaker.
Hmm.
And these other film makers and people in the industry are even farther removed from the brands themselves and the
Yeah.
specific models. So they don't even know if this is a
Yeah.
G4. They don't even know what model it is or what it really MLA. They don't know that, which is I think like FOMO. That's actually I think a better thing, don't you?
Absolutely, because they're looking for something that we're not looking for. I'd like to hear what is it they're looking for. Like what really blew my mind was Phil Holland. He was
Yeah,
just looking for 8K. He goes, I just need to get an 8K. I'm like,
yeah.
you and I would run away from 8K. And here's Phil. No, 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 no. I shoot 8K. I need
You
to
shoot
see every
16K.
pixel, right? I need to send that
Yeah,
in to 8K, via
yeah,
the special USB, whatever. But he wants a true 8K. And if it has to be an 8K OLED, he'll save up for it. And
yep,
I never would have thought that. And that perspective was very interesting to me because he
yeah.
sits close, he wants it big, and it's got to be 8K.
Yeah, and
Okay.
his eye as an artist is on
Very
different
different.
things. Shadow detail, and I know Phil's
Right.
not going to be able to be there this year. Yeah, he's shooting a film, which speaks to it. But FOMO, yeah. So I think we're not doing any predictions, but this is the 20th annual. I mean, this is a huge industry. Special thanks to Value Electronics, Robert, Wendy,
Hmm.
Leanne, and the whole team for having it on, and also all the calibrators, Dwayne Davis, John Rifamato, who's not calibrating, Jason Dustle, Cecil, Classy Tech. I mean, amazing having all these guys put all this hard work in. FOMO. We will see you here in this studio on your channel Friday evening, everybody.
Yep.
FOMO.
And I'll post the links on my channel, on your channel, whatnot. Just save the save the date. It'll be
Yep.
we're gonna have a Friday night stream pre-show. Give us our
Yep.
predictions maybe at that
Like
time.
9:30, almost
Uh,
10 o'clock.
yeah, late at night. So you guys are not doing anything at 9:30 Eastern time. Then Saturday around 3 o'clock, the coverage will start. And then Sunday in the morning, we'll do the larger TVs, right?
Yeah.
The Bravia 9 versus the 85-inch on Sunday. QD winner of OLED versus winner of mini LED. Out
Yeah.
of the box, we're gonna have out of the box
Yep.
winner, like, hey, out of the box, which one's most accurate? If you don't plan to get it calibrated, you might go with this TV,
Yeah.
which may not be the winner of the day before. So it's going
And
to be fun.
yeah, and in closing, what I like about what we're doing too, FOMO, is two separate categories. Then they compete together. And not having 8K this year, I think, is big because obviously Sony doesn't have anybody. The 8K LG is not out yet. The Z series Max is out at a certain size. It's the 3. So it really wasn't going to work.
No.
So I'm glad that we're not being distracted by like. So my point is, people looking at these other models are models that are in the Shootout anyway, just
Yeah.
larger versions,
Larger
versus
version.
taking your mind from an X95 and then going to a Z9K. You're going from a Bravia 9 at 65 to a Bravia 9 at 85, G4 to 83, and then the QN95. Unfortunately, if Chirag from Samsung Display is listening, let's get an 83-inch QD OLED next year,
Yes.
which I don't think is going to
Yes.
happen. But we'll see.
We could, if we keep on being that squeaky wheel, he's going to give us the TV we want.
Yeah.
Let's be hopeful.
All right, brother. I will see you Friday. Stop the FOMO. Thanks for jumping in, guys.
All
We
right,
will
man.
see you Friday night.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
It's better than